It's August in the garden, my friends, and it's hot. I am burning. I don't know why I'm wearing a black shirt, but August is my birthday month. So please comment happy birthday Kevin down below. If you comment happy birthday Eric, I'll be banning, blocking, and reporting you from this channel for the rest of your life. Now, we have some cool picks for August for you. I'm gonna start off, but Jacques and some other awesome gardeners on the Epic Gardening crew will be hitting you with stuff you can plant pretty much no matter where you live. And my first pick is right next to me. It's amaranth. Amaranth is an ancient grain. It's an ornamental plant, and some of the varieties, at least, you can eat the leaves as well. So it's kind of a triple threat in the garden. I grow it personally for the beauty, although last year Jacques and I actually harvested all of the grain of the amaranth in my garden, sorted it out, and turned it into what we could call a scone.
Wait, we're making scones, right?
Yeah. I don't really know if it counts, but it tasted pretty good, so it can be used for edible purposes. Now, the two varieties I'd recommend for you, if you do want to eat the leaves in any form or fashion, edible red leaf would be the one to go for. And then the one that I have right here, which is probably my favorite, is just burgundy amaranth. It's one of the more common varieties out there. Amaranth, once you plant it once in the garden, it will generally tend to come back season after season. So it's an annual, but it can grow as a perennial because it'll self-sow because there's just so many seeds. Now, I find that the first year you grow it, it's great to start them in a 6-cell tray or maybe in a greenhouse or inside under the windowsill or under a grow light, and then transplant it out. After that, I tend to not really have to plant them again. This one came up from the years prior planting, and the one over there also came up from the years prior planting. So it's a really fun plant. As you can tell, it adds probably one of the more unique, striking looks that you'll ever find in the garden that has an edible purpose as well.
One of the most fun lettuce varieties that you can start from seed in August in Zone 6A has to be the gourmet baby greens. I love these seed packets from Botanical Interest, and I've been growing them pretty much every year because they are a variety of different lettuces all in one pack. So you get butterhead, you get loose leaf lettuce, you get romaine, you get a mix of green and red leaves. So they're very vibrant in your garden. And it's also just fun to have such a good variety, and it just eats so well in the kitchen because you have so many different flavor profiles coming from not one plant, but one bunch of seeds that you're sowing. Lettuce really likes cool weather, so this is one I recommend sowing kind of towards the end of August. That way you're harvesting towards the end of September and early October when you're having those cooler nights, because if you can then harvest it in the morning, coming off a cooler night, your lettuce will be a lot crispier and stay fresh and just way better to eat for a lot longer. Baby greens are really easy to sow. All you have to do is just sprinkle the seeds right on the surface. I like to just kind of broadcast them like this and just do a little shake, and then take a little bit of soil and just sprinkle it right on top. They want to be about surface to an 1/8 inch deep. And I find that sprinkling and then putting more soil on top of it is just a lot easier than trying to dig a hole that's like an 1/8 inch deep. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of mulch on this just to retain moisture while these seeds are germinating, and then I'll water it in. This is a really low maintenance green because it doesn't require any thinning, meaning every seedling that comes up, you get to eat and enjoy. You don't have to go through that daunting task of cutting any or pulling any and sacrificing them in the name of plant spacing. You can enjoy every single seedling that germinates. So super, super easy. And as soon as the lettuce starts to look like something you would eat, you can eat it. You can cut them as baby greens. You can let them grow a little bit bigger for bigger pieces of lettuce. And if you cut them about 1 inch up from the soil, they will grow back. So this is a great cut and come again variety if you're looking to have endless salads throughout the fall.
There is no such thing as a problem or pest-free garden, and of course, I definitely have my fair share as well. One of the things that has recently been plaguing me in the garden has been root knot nematodes. They've been all up in my tomatoes, suffocating them and reducing my harvest. You could tell you have them by looking at the roots of your plants, and if you see these weird knobby growths, that's probably root knot nematode. But as an organic gardener, there really aren't that many solutions to this problem, but there is one particular plant that is well known for not just deterring them, but also eliminating them from your soil, and that is the French marigold. And that is why August is such a good time to plant way more French marigolds, because the best way to actually treat the nematode problem is to take your plants like this, chop them up, and work them into the surface of your soil wherever you experience that nematode problem. Now this one right here is the French Metromorph variety. It's a very cool one because it starts to turn yellow during the summer, and in the cooler months it gets really deep burgundy red. So it is a color shifter, but it is a French marigold. super pungent, and that pungency is what helps actually deal with that nematode problem. Now, if you don't have space for something like this, because this is quite a vigorous big one, there's also the Naughty Marietta and the Favorite Blend. Both of these are French marigolds that are suitable for this task, but really pick and choose whatever works best. I am going to be starting a whole bunch of these in seed trays, transplanting them around everywhere, and once my tomatoes are done, they're getting chopped and worked into that soil, and hopefully next year I will have less of a nematode issue.
Shannie here, checking in from Central Florida, and what is the worst looking part of my property right now, the annual vegetable field. In August, we are in peak summer heat. I have let the annual veg field simmer, go fallow for a few months because it is just too hot to be out here, and this soil needs a rest. That's fine because I'm about to head out here, start pulling weeds, start zhuzhing the soil, adding some manure, organic matter, getting things ready to take center stage because this is going to be the location for my fall tomato patch. So my first choice for the month of August, early in the month, I am going to head indoors and I am going to start my fall tomatoes. A fall tomato crop in Central Florida can be absolutely delicious, but you have to be pretty particular about starting these right on time. Early, mid-August is really as late as I'm going to go with these because I need to be harvesting my tomatoes before any rogue cold weather passes through, which could be happening as early as November, but most likely December in these parts. One major measure that I can take to prevent loss is to try a determinate variety of tomatoes. So I'm going with Container's Choice this season, and I have a very good reason. I am looking for a tomato that is not going to be super tall and spindly and easily knocked over in a hurricane or heavy wind. I'm looking for something a little more bushy and close to the ground. That is one huge reason to plant a determinate. I also need a tomato that's going to put out a nice yield early on. This variety is just 70 days to maturity. I like those numbers. I want to make sure that I get plenty of tomatoes. Sometimes late November, December can get frosty here. So I want to make sure that I've got plenty of tomatoes before that happens. Cherry tomatoes are an excellent way to get a nice set of fruit and to sort of bypass the pest and disease issue by having an earlier maturity and smaller fruit that are less prone to cracking and becoming diseased and fungal. So I am going with the Tropical Sunset and the Chadwick Cherry because I like a classic red, and of course I have to have something a little bit different. And I like to have a mix because I like a little rainbow salad and my toddler can't resist them. Now, these are indeterminate varieties, so I'm going to make sure that I have a nice trellis ready for them to keep them protected from any heavy winds.
One of the must-sow seeds that you do not want to skip in August in Zone 6A has to be kale. And specifically, I love the dinosaur kale. This is a great crop because when it's in its seedling stage, around 21 days after sowing, you can harvest these leaves to use in salads, or you can let this grow for about 2 months and have really long dark green kale leaves. But if I have kale growing, it's perfect because I can just add it right into all my fall recipes and it just tastes so good. My favorite way to grow kale has always been in a grow bag. I find that the 5-gallon is the perfect size for one kale plant. So that's pretty much what I stick to because I have been so successful with it. These seeds are really fast to germinate. They come up in about 5 to 10 days. And they only need to be about 1/4 inch deep. So in the middle of my grow bag, I like to just make a little small hole with my finger, take about, I don't know, 2 or 3 seeds. These usually germinate pretty well, so I don't go too overboard. And I just sprinkle them in, cover them up with a little soil. I'll mulch this just to keep the soil nice and moist while that seedling is starting to germinate. And in about 5 to 10 days, I'll have a sprout already, which is really exciting.
Oh, you're looking good. Oh, broke it. Oh, hey guys. Well, my next pick's not the amaranth. It's actually in my pantry. Welcome to my potato dumping ground in the pantry. This is the best place I have to store them, and it's not even that good. So you can plant potatoes in the fall if you've got about 80 or 90 days. So what you need is a seed potato. So I'm gonna hunt around for one of my potatoes in here. This is a good example. Maybe I'll take another one that has already sprouted or chitted, and now we just need to take it outside. Alrighty, we've got our potatoes. I like them in a raised bed, especially in the fall. Why? Because the raised bed, of course, raises that soil off the ground. That means the sun's hitting it a little bit earlier, keeps it a little bit warmer. Remember, when you're growing stuff in the fall, which something planted in August that takes about 80, 90, 100 days to grow would be in the fall, then you really want warmth to be a factor because the days are getting shorter and they're getting colder. So what I do is we actually just filled it up with some of Fox Farm's raised bed mix. This is a new mix that we really like. It's from Fox Farm, love it. And here we go. We've got our potatoes. We've grown potatoes just about every way you can grow them. We love growing potatoes in any method that's available to you as a home gardener, but raised beds for a lot of you guys is one of the best ways. So what you wanna do is, I only have 2 here, but you would just space them out about 1 foot apart and about 4 to 6 inches deep after you've topped it off with some raised bed mix or something like that. Pop it down, chitted side up or sprouted side up, just like that. Cover it up, and you really don't have to do much more. You give it a nice gentle water in. If it's chitted. If it's not chitted, don't even water it in yet because there's really nothing, there's no roots to develop to actually use that water. Now, if you're in a cold climate and you're like, hey, Kev, August for potatoes, I don't think I can pull that off. We just did an 8-method experiment growing potatoes where we learned that actually covering them from the very outset with a frost blanket of some kind dramatically increased how quickly you get potatoes to harvest. So if you are in that zone 5, 6, 7 right now and you still want to get some potatoes, you may want to put a frost cover over this right when you plant your seed potatoes and never take it off until it's time to harvest in a couple months.
I have to say it's hard for me to choose my favorite gardening season, but I do know the one that is the most underrated, and that is the fall garden. Right now is the perfect time to start thinking and actually starting some of your seeds for the fall garden. And this year I actually discovered I could even start things a little bit earlier than I expected, and I have an example right over there. And this is actually the first time I've successfully grown a broccoli in the middle of summer, and I did so by planting it in my raised bed tucked into the back corner that gets the most shade throughout the day, and so it stays much cooler. But for everyone else, no matter where you live, now is actually a good time to consider starting your brassica seeds to plant for a successful fall garden. The fall garden is generally a lot more chill, both literally, but also in terms of pest and disease pressure as well. You want to go about 8 weeks back from your first frost date and get those seeds started right now. What I am actually going to be starting is the Asperbrock. I'm also going to be starting the Twister cauliflower and the Burgundy broccoli. These are all more heat tolerant varieties or varieties that produce smaller crops, which means they're more sort of reliable in warmer weather. And so what you want to do right now is get them started in some sort of seed starting tray and then pot them up as you get closer to fall. As soon as it starts to cool down, get them in the ground. You'll probably at that point be removing old tomato plants, pumpkins, cucumbers, things like that. It's the perfect thing to slot into those areas. And then you'll have an autopilot, wonderful fall garden, and then maybe even lasting into the winter. So get out there, start a fall garden. It's highly worth it and highly underrated.
If there's one thing that I really think has elevated my cooking in the last 3 years is introducing herbs fresh from my garden into what I'm making. Cilantro is one of my favorite ones because I can use it both in salsa, and if you let it go to seed, you can harvest the seed as coriander. So it's kind of a double whammy type of herb. You can use the leaves fresh and you can use the seed for a totally different seasoning. I find that this is one that's great to sow in August because it likes cooler weather. So once it starts getting colder in say September or even October, it still does really well. And if you plant it in August, it'll be ready to harvest fresh throughout August because it grows really fast, but even into September to use the leaves and the stems to make salsa if you're trying to can up a ton of tomatoes and peppers from your garden. Cilantro does not need a ton of room to grow, and it's an herb you can kind of just like squeeze in any open space that you have in your garden in August. So I like to plant my cilantro next to my peppers in August, enjoy it fresh in August and September, and even harvest some of those coriander seeds into October.
I've put a lot of care and attention into my tomato seedling setup. So I decided I am going to plant out another beloved solanum while I'm at it. Therefore, in the month of August, I'm also going to be starting eggplants. I'm going to give my eggplant seeds the exact same conditions as my tomatoes. And when I plant them out, they're basically going to be treated like a determinate tomato. So I'm looking at the long purple eggplant this season because it's going to mature in as soon as 70 days. I like those numbers. That's going to give me a hefty yield before I even start to sweat it over the cold. And my eggplants are going to share a seedling tray with these tomatoes here. They are going to require the exact same conditions. So I am just surface sowing these seeds and then covering them with about 1/4 inch or less of soil. The key take home is that these plants are indeed solanaceous, sun-loving plants. However, they will not take extreme heat and sun. So we're going to baby them along in the shade, slowly move them out into partial shade, and then we are going to transplant them out into the garden once things have started to cool off a bit as the summer starts to wind down.
Planting in August in Zone 6A is all about setting yourselves up for a fall harvest or planting seeds that are cool weather crops. One of my favorite being romaine lettuce, and specifically the Vivian variety from Botanical Interest. This was one of my favorite crops I grew this spring, so I'm really looking forward to planting some more in August to then harvest throughout the fall. This can withstand a frost. It does really well in cooler temperatures, so as it's cooling down and your summer crops are kind of dying out, this is a really nice fresh crop to have in your garden to continue to enjoy in fresh salads. Romaine lettuce is a pretty compact plant, so you don't need a ton of room. I have grown it successfully in grow bags and raised beds on its own, but one thing I really like to do, especially for a fall planting, is sowing seeds underneath or next to my tomato plants. When you're sowing a cool weather crop in the heat of the summer, it can get really tricky if the early seedling stages have really hot weather affecting them because they might just wilt or they could bolt too early. So I find that if you plant these kind of underneath or to the sides of your tomato plants, these big branches and these big leaves of your tomatoes end up shading those small seedlings and protecting them from that really hot summer sun. And then when your tomato plants are kind of dying off, maybe like September or October, your romaine's still doing really well because it likes that cool weather and it's in the beginning of its growth. So you might have a bunch of dead tomato plants, but you have a nice fresh romaine lettuce underneath to keep life in your raised bed overall and just extend your season.
Well, call me a basic garden bro, but I don't care because this pick is probably one of my favorite flowers and I've been growing it ever since I first started gardening. We are talking about zinnias, but not just any zinnia. This is a seed shaker. There's a bunch of different zinnia varieties in it, and that's it. There's no filler. It's just all zinnia seed. You could cover 500 square feet with this bad boy. I'm not gonna do it right now because that's simply too many zinnias for the fall, but this little section right here, you can see this part of the garden is getting a little bit tired looking. Some of the sunflowers are dying back a bit. Good time to resow. We took a wildflower mix through this in the summer. We're gonna take a cut and come again zinnia mix through this in the fall. It's legitimately this easy. You just come through, do a light sprinkle like this. You don't have to be too precious about it. Water it in, maybe throw some compost on top. It's not a huge deal. You will get a crazy amount of sprouts. Over by the chicken coop, I did this with some of the varieties that chickens like to kind of graze on and snack on, and they kept it this beautiful little flower hedge over there. It looked really, really nice. So if you want to check this out, you definitely can, but if you want to learn how to grow zinnias, which aren't that hard, we did make a full video on them you can check out right here. Of course, all these seeds can be purchased at botanicalinterest.com. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.